the reality is that it starts first with the people, because if you don't have the staff, even to make the game or to prototype or to develop or a co-founding team, then you don't really have a studio.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Mastering Retention Roundtable. Don't get to do too many of these, so this is super exciting. I get to hang out with some of my favorite people in the whole world from all around the world. Really delighted to have you guys all on today. We're going to be talking about starting a game studio, which believe it or not, I think most people in the gaming industry have this like secret desire to be able to start their own studio and have that full creative capabilities of, impacting games and stuff. So it's on a lot of people's minds. Should I start a studio? Should I join a studio? What's the actual process of doing it if I want to take that leap? And when do I do that? So just a lot of different things. So we thought, let's pull together a forum of experts who have all been starting really successful studios lately. And just kind of dive into things. But before we do, maybe we can just kind of go around and do some intros. Sophie, would you maybe want to go first?
Mm-hmm. Hi, everyone. Oh, sorry. First pitch of the day. And I was listening a lot during the day. Didn't talk much, actually. So hi, everyone. I'm Sophie. I'm the lead of a studio in Berlin with Voodoo. And I started a new studio it's been 2 years ago, actually. The first casual studio in a hyper casual company. And 2 years after, we are a team of 14 people. We have launched our first game, trying to grow and scale it. Building it from scratch, and happy to share insights with the panel today.
Cool. Peter, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Peter. I'm from Bangalore, India. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer and the main instigator of super huge studios. We've been it's a brand new studio. We've just been around for 6 months. I've been making games for 12 years now, and I've been making games since I was 11 years old. So that's practically everything I've been doing with my entire life. And right now we have a team of about 8 to 10 people, depending on how we count it. We have people all around the world. We are working from home. We are making awesome stuff, and we are having fun doing it.
That's amazing. Mike?
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Mike. I am CEO of Tailwind Studios. We're a content creation studio on the Roblox platform. So we've been around for 8 months now. My background is I've been a game designer for 15 years. So some of my kind of big hits were working at Jagex, where I started out on RuneScape and some other titles. And then I went to Spain in Barcelona, and then came back via India, and then worked for King for a few years on Farm Hero Saga and some other games, and then did a bit of consultancy, and then stumbled into Roblox, which I'll probably talk a little bit more about later. But yeah, that's my background. We're currently 10 people full-time remotely, but all in the UK.
It's awesome. Yeah. And one other thing that I would just call out, Sophie has recently started Rise and Play, where she goes into a lot of vision stuff that I'm sure we'll cover later, but we'll definitely put a link in there. And for anyone thinking about a studio, I highly recommend watching all of her videos and listening to all the things that she puts out, because she really takes a great approach to thinking about building a great team too. But with that, let's dive into it. Oh, and I'm Tom Hammond, co-founder and CEO of UserWise. So let's maybe start with what games you guys are currently playing and why, because I think that's a fascinating thing. I can go first. I've been playing a bunch of League of Legends Wild Rift because I thought that it would be really fun to do a podcast episode with my friend where we break down the game and the live ops and things. and both of us ended up playing way too much Wild Rift. I think I'm going to have to uninstall it. We just did the podcast like a couple days ago, and I got to playing like 4 hours a day on this thing, and I was like, okay, I need to cut it out. But just really fun game, and they do such a beautiful job of psychological implementation, and the way that they translated this PC game to a mobile experience. Like, I would have thought that it was basically impossible, and yet they did it, and they just made the controls so elegant. It just makes sense to me. So really, really jiving with that game. Mike, you want to go next?
Yeah, I will go next. That's awesome, Tom. I love that game too. I guess two games that I'm playing a lot of at the moment, right? So Civilization 6 is like a guilty pleasure. It's a comfort game. I've been playing Civ games like ever since the first one came out, and it was kind of like my lockdown game. So I was like heading to the airport to go on my stag/bachelor party. So I downloaded Civ after not playing it for a while on my phone. I was like, this is what I'm going to play on the plane journey, get into it. And then that got cancelled because of lockdown. So we literally had to cancel that like as I was going to the airport. And then the next year and a half ever since, I've just been playing a lot of Civ 6, like all the expansions. It's really relaxing. I love strategy games naturally. It's got so much depth. I haven't got there's no pressure because I'm playing by myself. I just really enjoy that game. And I'm also playing a lot of this game called Pet Simulator X on Roblox, which came out a couple of weeks ago. And it's just got those compulsion loops. It's kind of like Adventure Capitalist or like Cookie Clicker, but in a 3D Roblox space, and people are around hanging out a little bit as well. It's got kind of social elements to it. And it just kind of taps into those core psychological motivators of constantly progressing on various levels, multiple goals. And I'm just a sucker for that. So I'm enjoying it at the moment.
Awesome. Sophie, you want to go next?
Yeah, so mine are more on also in the realm of games, of course, I make, so more puzzle-oriented. So the ones that latest marked me the most is also a Project Makeover. So I've been actually very well done, very complete game, nice music. I think it's a case where when I was playing it, I even asked myself, if we were to make a game like this with our team of 14, is it even possible? I think I don't know how many there are, but there seem to be quite many, but super polished game and sets the bar really high when it comes to this casual expanded version hybrid. And another one that was quite interesting called Match 3D, because of course, being at Voodoo, I also look and play a lot of hyper casual game. And this one is a bit of an alien in the sense that it has a lot of in-app purchase, and it's much really you have a grid, and then you have a lot of pairs of objects you have to find and throw out of the board to put them together and clear them. So it's very satisfying ASMR. And when I look at that Pani, they convert a lot as well with in-app purchase, which is very surprising for me. So this is at least the only case I know that has the appeal of a hyper-casual game with a monetization that something looks like a match 3. It's an exception. I haven't seen so many, but for me, it's been fascinating to understand like why people would spend in a game like that. And so I learn always something new when I try these games. Yeah.
That's awesome. What about you, Peter?
I have, I could say that this is sort of a guilty pleasure, but I've been playing a lot of mobile games all this while. There's always something new to learn. And about 6 months ago, I kind of put a halt to that. And I'm like, let me play something that is visceral, something that is intense, something that is super immersive. So when I took myself to the mall, bought a steering wheel rig, I don't know what you call it, it's a sim racing rig with the seats and everything. And I started playing a lot of these simulation games, and I'm kind of addicted to WRC right now. So, so that's what is happening. And it's not like unlike mobile games. I'm loving this break, so I can just go out there and play it. And it's like 10 to 15 minutes of like full focus racing, and it feels very intense compared to the mobile games I was playing. And I'm not coming back because of meta loops or because there is compulsions like that. I'm coming in for the inherent motivation to just play and beat my own time. And I kind of like that, because that is the way I started playing games when I was like 10, 11 years old. And that was what games are about. So I'm kind of going back and getting in touch with why I started playing in the first place. It kind of got for me when I went to when mobile games got to the level where it was like adventure capitalist. There was like it was all meta layer and not really much of gameplay. As in, there was no traditional sense of gameplay there. It's basically a humongous pile of meta layers implemented in UI. And I wanted to go back and be like I wanted to feel how it felt to just race and be in the moment. So I kind of got addicted to that. It's been 6 months going right now. So this is the phase I'm going through.
The other day I was dialoguing with someone of like, what does retention actually mean? And like, what's the real driver of it? And at the end of the day, we kind of got back to that moment of when something just feels really good, like, in Candy Crush, it could be you play the whole level failing so many times, and you finally set up like the two really big explosions beside each other, and you get to blow up everything on the last move and win the level. Like, it feels really good. You're playing League of Legends and you end up cleaning up and you're the MVP and you like carry your team in. Like, it just feels really good. And you can just keep kind of coming back because you want that same sort of sensation of probably the same thing you get when you beat your time. Right. It just feels really like you don't really need any of that other stuff there to really drive those experiences. So I love that. That's really great.
My kind of understanding was that, all the other stuff, all the meta layers, the reactivation mechanics, all the compulsions are there to amplify the core, need to come back and experience the fun, the thrill of gameplay again. But then, mobile games have gotten to a point where, it's not that simple. Yeah. Sometimes the core engagement, the core thrill of playing something is so minute, and the very small thing is like amplified. And sometimes even like that motivation to come back is purely manifested out of those meta layers instead of, taking that thrill, the inherent thrill of gameplay and amplifying it.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels good to go back.
Yeah, those emotional highs and lows. I love it. Cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about how each of you became a studio founder. Sophie, would you like to start? What's your story that led you to starting your own studio?
Yeah, so I can also share a bit about my background. So before I started the studio at Voodoo, I was working as product lead mostly in companies like Rovio, Wooga, also at Gameloft. So I have learned, I would say, the way of how to build a product from scratch, also a team in an organization. And for me, the main limiting factor was the culture I wanted to set in the team, because it's also very determined by the culture of the company, priorities, and oftentimes I found myself having to just prioritize always the product, roadmap changes, etc., and very little for the team or the people part, human part that was really important to me, and that makes the work meaningful as well for me. So I made the conclusions, the only way that I could do meaningfully the work I want is to do it on my own. And I was lucky actually when I was considering different roads. So I was also thinking about starting my own company. Voodoo approached me as well with the opportunity like, hey, we are looking to expand. We give a lot of ownership to build a new studio. You choose where you are located. So I had the choice between Helsinki or Berlin or anywhere, Paris even. I chose Berlin because it was, to me, a better hub to hire people as well. And I had my network still there. And also the way we work with Voodoo is that so there's a lot of ownership on the how, a bit less, I would say, on the what. Of course, I'm still like working at Voodoo, trying to leverage the DNA of a company in terms of hyper-casual marketability. However, I had total freedom on who I hire, how I set up the culture in the studio, our processes. And the good part of it is I can do as I envision it, but I had to do it all by myself. So I didn't have much support either. But that's why I did the masterclass, because then I had to build a system for myself and thought of sharing it, because probably I was not the only one starting with, zero support, like no staff to go out there, source people. But yeah, that's how I started.
That's great. Mike, how did you become a studio founder?
Yeah, I think you kind of summed up the motivation yourself really well in the intro to this session, where you kind of said that I think deep down a lot of people in the industry have always wanted it. And I think I'm kind of one of those as well. And it really kind of I started to get the itch while I was at King. And like King is a fantastic place to work. I met some really great people and learned a lot while I was there. But I would say at some point, working in a big corporation like that, you kind of lose a sense of autonomy. So in terms of decision making, and maybe sometimes decisions can feel like they're very business led and like lack a bit of kind of input as a designer. So like for someone who's always been a designer, so yeah, you kind of want that creative control. So when I moved on from King, I was kind of thinking, oh yeah, I'll like start my own indie thing. I'll like work on my own game in Unity. So I started that over a weekend. And then by the Monday, I had a call from a recruiter who was like, hey, do you want to do some consulting? And then that kind of turned into a 3-year consultancy sort of thing that I was doing and working with some amazing founders, like small companies, some medium companies, and yeah, just like learning loads about the startup space. And it was kind of like during that period that I encountered Roblox. And so there was a studio called Super Social, who are one of the first professional studios making games for the Roblox platform. So I came on board there as a contract game design director. And I was working with them for 6 months. They didn't really have any gaming experts in their founding team. So I kind of took on that role and really helped like with the early hires, setting up the processes, working on the design for the first game and really getting them off the ground. And then when that contract came to an end in November last year, I was like, right, I'm not ready to finish with Roblox. Like the opportunity is insane. Like 43 million daily active users, like over 200 million monthly active users, just so much to love about the platform. I had this deep ambition to always do it. It kind of came together with the way that the kind of team formed as well, which I'll touch on a bit later on. But yeah, it was that kind of perfect storm of circumstances that was like, now is the time to just do that thing I've always wanted to do. So that's kind of how we formed Tailwind.
Love it. Peter?
So this is the second company I founded. The first time I did it, it was a lot of fun, but we did it for the wrong reasons. So I was working in a startup and kind of had the feeling that a lot of the games that we were working on was rushed out. And I felt that if we did it right, we could make much better games. And I tried to push some changes there, and I felt that it's not going to happen. They were focusing on volume over quality. So I kind of broke off, quit, and started my own thing. And I just wanted to do better than the company that I left, because it was a personal mission for me. And the thing is, we managed to do that. It was just me and 2 of my friends who joined up. We managed to do that in the first 3 months. And then what? So we kind of had fun for the next 2.5 years. We made games that we want to play, and we found publishers for it, and we had a profit, and we were like a rock band. We were having fun doing our own thing. The thing is, we did not have a big ambition. We just wanted to have fun, and we did that. And after about 2.5 years of doing that, we kind of broke up like a rock band again. Like we just got bored with it and went our separate ways. And the thing is, we literally failed at making a huge impact just because we didn't have a big enough ambition. So that's the worst way to fail, because we succeeded at what we wanted to do, but it just wasn't big enough. And then, I spent about 10 years working in a lot of companies, working with some really awesome people, learning from the best. At one point at Moonfrog, I was working directly under Mark Skaggs, who used to be the VP of games at Zynga. He's the guy who made Farmville and whatnot. So that was a humongous opportunity. I worked with him, And he was a little mentor to me. He was the executive producer on that project, and I was the producer. And I've had a lot of people like this who came in and I could learn from. And then I've always wanted to do the next, do a game studio and do it right. This time with ambition, right? And I always thought it's going to happen about 2024, 2025 somewhere. And then this old friend called me up, and he's one of the oldest people in the Indian game industry. In '97, when the first real game studio was founded in India, he was part of the core team. And he's much older than me, much more wiser, much more stable. And he called me up and said, like, hey, I've got funding, I'm starting something, and you're the first person I'm calling. And the moment I got that call, I abandoned my job. I was at Pune. I relocated 1,500 kilometers back to Bangalore. I got a house here. I moved in within about 2 weeks. And I'm like, I'm living right next to the office where the office is going to be. I'm like, let's talk. So I had to just jump in. So I was planning this. I knew that I had to learn this, and get to this point in my life, at which point I can confidently do my startup. And I was very close to there. But then, sometimes all of the things just fall into place. It's like a Tetris game. It's like everything is packed up and you just need a long piece and it comes around, and we can't be like, okay, maybe next time, right? It just falls into place and you have to go for it. So my gut feel, my brain, my heart, everything screams like, abandon your job, go join with Joshi and do it. So I did. So me and Joshi, we're heading this team. Joshi is the senior guy that I was talking about. So this is a lot of fun, and I'm loving that that risk that I took has been totally worth it. And I'm loving being able to work with a tight team who's all aligned in the same direction. We got creative control. We have a nice little runway. We know what we're building. We are very confident in the product strategy that we have adopted, and everybody is pushing in the same direction. So it feels great. It's like a awesome, sports team. Everybody knows what they're doing, and we can read each other's mind. And it's just coming along really well right now.
That's so exciting. Cool. What's one thing that most people don't realize about starting a studio? Sophie, do you want to take that one first?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's probably still happening, and I'll talk here based on my own experience. But when building a studio, there's a lot of, and for good reason, focus on what is the game I will build. So what is the game that I'm trying to build first? And so figuring it out, having like the thing spec'd out and so on. And the reality is that it starts first with the people, because if you don't have the staff, even to make the game or to prototype or to develop or co-founding team, then you don't really have a studio. So it's a counterintuitive to think, okay, then you and there's this reference from good to great, where you put the right people on the bus, and then you find where you go together with the bus, instead of like drive first with the bus and hope on people on the bus. So I like this analogy, and I do believe in that, and trust the process, that you will find where people are the strongest at, the most expertise, like the group you have created, and then going somewhere. Of course, you have some high-level direction, but I'm talking here specific, like I have this game vision, and this is the one we have to make. I think first get the people, and then you have the vision more clearly about the game.
I like that. Peter, what's one thing most people don't realize about starting a studio?
Okay, I learned this quite recently. Okay, this is obvious once I say it, but then I learned how true this is quite recently. The principle goes that no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy, and that is true in terms of everything. Literally, I started with a product strategy, and then I talked to the target market, and we had epiphanies. Like we realized that a lot of the assumptions that we built the product strategy on weren't, it simply doesn't hold water. So we had to be agile in the sense that when we talk to our players, when we get data that indicates how their in-game behavior is, we should always be ready to understand, accept those feedback, and evolve your product strategy and change. And another thing is, like, when it comes to hiring, you cannot ever hire the exact person you are hiring for. It's all like jigsaw puzzles. People are all like jigsaw puzzles, and you want to find ways in which they fit together, but they are not like regularly shaped jigsaw puzzles. They are wonky. When you interview somebody, you put them through three rounds of tests and 4 rounds of interviews. You think you understand the person, but then he comes in, and the first time you hit a crisis situation, a release is delayed, and then you realize that, oh man, this guy tends to panic and do the wrong stuff, or this guy tends to get angry when he is stressed out, and or he is supposed to be an expert at analytics, but he's doing this for the first time. Somehow anything could happen. So the thing is, you cannot hire people and force them to fit into the mold that you hired them for. Sometimes you have to change your expectations. You might hire a person who you thought was really good at A, and then find that he's really good at B and C. So then you have to adapt and make the team fit him, rather than him forcing him to evolve into the team. So this is what I've understood. I've done this a lot of times before. I've hired before. I've made product strategies, and this is all. But when you do it for your company, and you're completely responsible for what happens, and the entire thing rests with you, you cannot say that, okay, the buck stops with me, basically. So we have to take responsibility and be like, yeah, this is what we aimed for, but this is what's coming, and this is how we were going to correct it. So no matter how strong your plan is, be ready to be flexible.
I like that. Mike, what's one thing most people don't realize about starting a studio?
Awesome stuff from Peter there. And also I want to echo what Sophie said about culture. So when we formed Tailwind, literally on day one of forming the company, myself and my co-founder Gina, we just sat down and wrote out our company values. And I don't think very many companies will start with their values. So many startups kind of don't even think about them until way later on. And that really helped set the tone for what we're trying to build. It helped form our name. We set the values before we even set the name, right? So that was really important for us. And then the other thing that has sort of come through a lot with our recent fundraising that we've been doing, because we talked to a lot of VCs, has been we're not selling a game here. We're not forming this company to make a game. We're doing something far bigger. So we're about the opportunity that we're pursuing in the metaverse. We strongly believe that this is an aspect of the future of games. And there's so much there in terms of growth. And we want to be riding that wave, and leading kind of thought leadership in that space. And then the other thing is about, as Sophie said again, building an amazing team. So when I talk to investors, I'm focusing on opportunity and team. And we have an awesome game that's actually going into play testing tomorrow. And we're really proud of what we're building. But yeah, we're not raising off that. I actually had some advice from, I think it was Chris Lee actually, quite a few years ago. He said, if you're going to be founding a studio, make sure that you're assembling a world-class sort of team of co-founders around you, and that you're kind of world-class in a few areas. Don't feel like you need to do everything, but really cover a few of the bases really well, and then you can kind of bring the other talents in, but make sure you have that kind of core skill set. And finally, something that most people don't realize as well is that it kind of contradicts my previous point slightly, but I'm no longer a game designer. So I've been a game designer for 15 years and I've always seen myself as a game designer. And we founded this studio and we were right, we've got game design production, which is me. We've got an amazing tech guy, an amazing art director, and then one of the best operations and people that I've ever met, who's Gina, my co-founder. And very quickly within the first week, I'm not doing game design anymore because there's so much to do when you start a company. I would say Max does a lot more game design than I do as tech director, because I've just there's so much biz dev and just a lot of emails. I'm half my life is either meetings or emails, and as much that's something that a lot of people maybe don't think about. But yeah, you start a company and the biz dev side is a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing. And usually it changes over time too. You get a new role, every year that your company progresses further too. So, you're learning this because it's the most important thing for your company. And then next year you're learning something completely new, and you just gotta be willing to roll with it. Cool. So you mentioned co-founders, and I think this is something that, I believe in. I personally won't invest in a company that doesn't have co-founders, because I think that it is so hard to do it alone without the support, because there are times when it just sucks and it's going to be tough, like really tough. And having someone that you can completely kind of trust and rely on, I think, is essential. So within that context of co-founders, what I would say, like, roles do you guys think are crucial to being able to start a studio? Like, if, this is the maybe minimum that I would say you could start with, and maybe this is the ideal team. Peter, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah. So I probably took a very unconventional route to this. So the thing is, I'm a generalist. I was right now making some animation. Okay. Professionally, the last job I had was being a product manager. I've done game design. I've been a producer for 5 years. And so basically I've done every job professionally, except for being a QA. I simply don't have that level of patience. And the thing is, my co-founder is also a generalist. He started off as an artist. He's an amazing artist, right? What happens is that he has a lot of experience managing teams and building companies from scratch. And it was that me and him combined together kind of covered all the bases. So what we thought was, like, we have these two generalists who are like, two sides of the yin yang. And, he's older, he has more experience, and he's wiser. And I'm younger and I have more energy and I have less fear, while he has, his wisdom. And like, sometimes I run too fast and he's there to stop me. And sometimes he's not taking bold strokes, but I'm there to take those bold strokes. So there is this synergy between us that really works. So we thought that, the two of us are there. And then we thought that we'll hire people, and we don't bring them in straight up as co-founders, because that's a huge commitment. We hire them as employees. We work with them. They grow with us. And at some point, if they are, really integral to the team, we move them into you can have a co-founder joining you 2 or 3 years, later. So the thing is, I have people in my team who I believe would eventually become a co-founder. They don't know it yet. They'll know it when it is time. So we're like, we want all these guys to grow up and become parts of the core part of the team. So we're going to be very cautious about this, about letting in people. Having a co-founder that doesn't really work out can break a company that is otherwise perfect. And we have had experience with this. Okay, so we want to play it very safe. And we're basically hiring people who can be amazing. And if they are amazing and they are like indispensable, they're going to be co-founders eventually. That's the approach that we're taking right now.
Interesting. Sophie, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, so I'll comment here because on my side, I didn't have a case of co-founders, of course, but I did think about it when I started the studio. And I know, because we were at Vodou, several studios starting, and I could see different ways. And I would say the classic way is like, you are the lead, and then you surround yourself with a team, and then you take everything on your shoulder. I did differently, where actually from the beginning, I knew, although we were just few, 3-4 people, and hardly the tech lead, that were and of course a very strong designer, a senior designer, but no lead designer, because when there's no game, I didn't see the point of having at this point a lead designer, but at least to lead, I would say, the product thinking in terms of art and tech as well. And it was a good call, because then quickly I could put all my efforts and attention in the things that I'm supposed to do. So we talked about the different roles you have to do. So sometimes, some days I was producer, tester, or a marketer, whatever the studio needs, or a recruiter. And then you can rely on people who are really strong to support you, and also then develop the others. So now, these days, we have a system in our team. So we are 14, where my direct reports are the leads. So either senior designer or lead tech lead, and I promoted a co-lead. So he was my product manager. I worked with him since a long time. And I work closely with them, and then they really want also to grow in the studio. So then they are leads as well in their craft and can also do a lot of things. So it's a system that is autonomous and works by itself. And also we're much more focused and attention, and I don't have to manage, I don't know, 13 people, but in the end it's 4 or 5, and they get to also lead other people, and it works like a nice machine. So I would say behind the co-founder's question is being able to trust and lean on others, because I found myself in a situation where I had no idea how to solve very difficult situation. And in the past, I would actually deal with it alone to protect the team. And then that's my obligation duty. But I learned to share actually with this group of co-leads. And we found amazing solution, and everybody likes to take responsibility, and will also try to find solution with their own groups. So I think for me, that's behind the technical of the necessity to have co-founders is more the mental support, like to not have to deal with things alone, and you are much stronger to have different perspective to tackle hard situations with others.
Yeah. So you kind of got into my next question there, which was, who should your first hires be? Mike, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll just chip in on the previous question a little bit as well, because I think what Sophie said about having that kind of mental support from co-founders is super important. So there's like 4 of us as co-founders, but my first co-founder was Gina, who's my partner in life as well as partner in business. And that kind of mental support that we get from working on something together and really going after the same goal, really, really hard, is so powerful, because it just means that if you have to work a little bit late to focus on something and really go after it, you're not feeling guilty because you're sort of taking attention away from your partner and all those kinds of things. So that's really powerful. And I guess, so your latest question then, about who should your first hires be? It definitely flows on quite nicely. I would say, for us, we needed to have the skill set to prototype a game, right? So that was a really important thing. So I'm making sure that we kind of covered the bases there. So tech, art, design, production, but then also people, which is unit and operations. And so many games teams just leave that role out and just don't really think about it or focus on it. But the elephant in the room here at this point is money, right? So it's all very well thinking of hiring people, and it kind of goes back to the co-founder question, but our approach to not having any money at the start was to also think about not hoarding equity like a dragon. So maybe not thinking I'm going to hold on to as much equity as I possibly can. I want to have 60% of the company and then we dish out. It's you need to think about giving the people that are founding the business with you and they're a big part of the journey, give them some real skin in the game. Because it serves a couple of benefits. It serves the benefit of it covers that short-term gap where you don't have much money to pay people, so that you can pay them what they can live on rather than necessarily what they're worth, because you just don't have it. So you can kind of give them that really good equity for taking the risk, but then also the motivation that gives in the long term. They're so committed to the company because they have such a great upside out of it. So I think that giving away loads of equity actually can come back to you in the success of the company and really help with that. So we're going to be doing the same thing with all of our employees as well, making sure that we kind of having that kind of ownership and buy-in from everyone. I think that mostly answers it. And then, it's just about, so if you think about our first 10 people, we brought on an extra 2 people for the dev team, an extra 2 artists, a community manager, a game designer. And actually our 11th hire is another people person, a director of people who will now be able to so early on build the best culture that we possibly can, and I make sure that our employees are looked after and really cared about and help the next phase of our growth.
Very cool. Shall we delve into the funding question of should I raise at what point in time should I raise, and I don't know if we want to touch how much should I raise, because I think that, very much depends. But I think the general question is like, should I raise money, and when is the right time to start raising money? Is it once I've got that, initial team of co-founders? Do I wait till I have a prototype with KPIs? What do you guys think? Sophie, do you want to try this one? I know you kind of had the voodoo funny rant, but I'm curious, what your thoughts are on things if you were to start your own company today.
Yeah, I've been switching here and there because I have friends as well who started with fundraising from the beginning, and some who bootstrapped. Personally, and it's easy for me to say in theory because I'm not doing it. So it's just like if I had to, that would be the plan. I would bootstrap as long as possible, I think. So I would work with people I have worked with closely, co-founders, we share equity. And I would take the time without the pressure, like where we have the money and so on, where we take a bit on our savings to live. And there are many tools you can use as well to prototype something quickly. You set up a campaign on Facebook, you can test a lot of things. So we would just do it by ourselves to prototype and have something good and that a bit of traction. And this is where I would start to raise, actually, to start to grow a team and build the bigger team around this product so we could push it to launch. Why is that? I think there's a lot of attention as well and focus, not lost, but it takes a lot of energy to go raise funds, make the pitch and so on. And that's where I would rather have my intention from the beginning, really in having a solid product with a solid team. And then actually also, this is where I would raise probably interesting amounts when I already have traction. So that's how I would do. But time will tell when I'm actually doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, I know you just finished doing some fundraising and stuff. What's your take?
When am I not fundraising, Tom? So I'm going to do something that you probably don't usually hear people do. I'm going to be really transparent with our numbers and things. Like I'll probably get in trouble for doing this, but I think it's quite refreshing. A company that I really look up to is Space Ape over in London. They host these events called Games First, and it was one of the things that inspired me to become a founder. Actually, was the talks there and listening to some amazing people, and just how open they are with sharing things and leveling up the industry and the community. And it's something that we want to be doing as well. So a little bit of background into January to today for us. So it was me and Gina put a little bit of money in to pay our other co-founders a bit to sort of get that going. And then we got on this Roblox Accelerator program, which they didn't take any equity because they benefit by having better studios on the platform because they get a good cut of the revenue anyway. So it's in their interest to just sort of support studios like ourselves who are starting out. So we got 40K from that. And 12 weeks of really great masterclasses and connections and meeting Roblox people and other developers and integrating into the community. And that 40K allowed people in our team to eat, and it allowed us to bring on a few contractors and accelerate the progress of our game. And then during that period, we updated our LinkedIn to say, hey, we're doing this venture. And then some angels kind of cold outreach to us. So this guy called Joachim Akren, who's really big on LinkedIn. He posts some amazing content. He runs this website called Elite Game Developers. I highly recommend you check out Elite Game Developers and also his podcast. He's amazing. So he reached out and he's like, hey, I'm interested in this. Can I invest with my syndicate? So his syndicate ended up putting in about $200,000. And we got some amazing people from that syndicate. I won't name them, but there's a lot of people in there who add so much value for us in loads of different ways. And it's having all these industry experts just cheering us on in the background. And that was part of a bigger pre-seed raise, which we closed in end of March. And in total, it was $800,000 at a $4 million post-money valuation. And amongst that other 800K, there was some of the best angels you could possibly wish for on your cap table. So we managed to get Chris Lee on board, who's like really sort of well known as like being this like almost benevolent kind of angel, and he just talks to us every day and like really supports us. He really helped to fill the rest of the rest of the cap table for us. So he's opened every door that we would ever want opened. And like, yes, so we ended up getting like 13 kind of different angels during that phase, and they all add value in different ways. Some early stage, some like are quite quiet at the moment, but we know that there's some really good value sort of later on that we can get from them, and they're just on board cheering us on. So that was a kind of, I would definitely recommend working with angels if you're kind of pre-revenue and you don't have like, because as like Sophie was talking about traction, I completely agree. But the thing is, there's a lot of money out there in the market willing to put into exciting new ventures. So angels are like always looking out for a great opportunity to sort of back if the team's right and the opportunity is right. And then the really interesting thing is that once we kind of got that track, we closed that round, had this $800,000. We're able to grow the team to 10, build this great team, demonstrate some traction, get our first game to a point. We did this kind of PR launch with GI.biz. We kind of did like some interviews and things, and then our inbox is flooded with messages from VCs. And the last 2 months has just been like back to back, talking to VCs all the time, like learning from some really smart people, kind of almost iterating on our strategy slightly on the fly. So like there was things we wanted to do in terms of like a publishing side of the business, in terms of potentially working on other platforms beyond just Roblox as well. And as you talk and have these conversations with some really smart people, it helps evolve what you think you need to do to sort of take the business to that next level and sort of what things to focus on. And yeah, so long story short, we've been talking with a lot of great people, and I'll say it. Today, we're like basically closing around with some fantastic partners, like really, really great funds who are going to be working with us. And we're like raising over $3 million for this kind of round. So that'll be like 8 months to get to a lot of money. And we're really excited, A, to not have to like fundraise anymore for quite a while, not to be able to focus on the things you want to focus on, and B, just for what we can do with these funds in terms of the amazing hires we can bring in, the amazing partners we can work with. So it's going to be good.
That's super exciting. Congrats. So I know we've only got a little more time here, so I'm going to jump around with questions a little bit. One that someone was curious about, and Peter, maybe you can answer this one, otherwise I'll give it to Sophie. But what is the major difference in setting up a studio for a large corporation versus starting one as an owner?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
So I have worked in studios which are owned by large corporations. I haven't set up one, but there is a definite difference in vibe. So as much as possible, I've worked in small startups, and what I've seen is that I get to wear a lot of different hats, and you have a much bigger impact on the future of the company and the product. And that kind of gives you a lot of agency, and you get to learn a lot much faster. And the thing is, for me at least, it's much more risky, sometimes a lot more stressful, but it is way more gratifying for me, being able to build something up and having creative control over it. And then, creating this thing that you appreciate, which came out of your brain and it looks awesome and plays fun. That is really gratifying. And the thing is, when you work for a big company, it can feel a little mechanical, as in, you're just a cog in the infinitely huge machine, and you just are doing things that you've been told to do. And you feel that at some point you don't have that level of agency. And even if you do your best, it doesn't make a big enough impact on the outcome. It kind of, drains some of the gratification out for me. So I've always loved working in smaller companies, and I kept working in small startups. And the moment it gets to a point where there are like more than 100 employees, I kind of lose interest, because that interesting phase of growing it from nothing to something is now over. And it kind of helped me set up this studio now, because this is the exact kind of experience I needed to build a studio from scratch.
Yeah. Sophie, anything you would add from your experiences?
In the case of Odoo, I think it's pretty unique to the culture because we are quite independent as studios. I mean, the way I could describe it is like my relationship with the leadership is really more as an accelerator, not even an incubator. So when you have traction, you have something that is good, and it's like a full steam scale and growth, which can be also quite fast and intense. So I would say here, at least the difference I appreciate because I could have gone starting my own company. I actually appreciate it to go directly in starting the studio and not having to raise funds and worrying about that. So that was for me a good alternative. I wanted to try it out because that's the part I enjoy the most, like building a team, building a studio, building a culture. So if I had the opportunity to go straight in without like doing the whole admin, which I have been on the company before and I know, and I don't like that part, but I know it's necessary. That could be the advantage of it if you are willing to let go a little bit of this autonomy. So I think it depends, right? For me, I was fine with of course, making still games under Odoo, as long as I have full freedom on the how. That was my personal choice.
I love that. Cool. Okay. Another question. So this comes from someone that's a little bit more on like the business or marketing side of games. And they're kind of curious, if they want to start a studio, a few questions like, how do you convince, other people to kind of join you on the adventure? Would you consider hiring a full team or outsourcing kind of those, early prototype stages? And I think we already covered this, but specifically, what types of people would that person kind of need? I assume it would be like tech, art, and probably someone on the game design side of things. But Mike, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll quickly touch on the part which is how do you convince people to join you on the adventure, because I think that's like the most fun one, so I'm just going to sort of focus on that. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Yeah, that is I would say that being really passionate about what the opportunity is and what you're trying to do, like really believing in it and knowing your shit, pardon my swearing, and just conveying that vision and expressing that to everyone. And I think you can really get a lot of buy-in in that way. Also, we spoken quite a lot about company culture. I think that's really important, making sure that you're kind of building an inclusive culture. We like to say that Tailwind are building a culture of kindness. Something else which we think has given us a bit of an unfair advantage here is that Gino and I always wanted to start a company with a 4-day working week. But going really big on it and not saying, right, 4-day working week, but you work 2 hours extra a day. It's no, it's 4. So it's 4-day working week, normal hours, market rate salaries, not compromising on anything, and just really believing in that. And we found that our staff are really happy. They're rested. They're able to contribute to society. They're able to. Yeah, and we're hoping that it's going to be really good for retention, and it's already been quite good for recruitment. Plus, making people feel like owners as well. So I think a combination of all of those things is hopefully going to enable us to sort of convince some really good talent to be on this journey with us.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's part of the reason that you should start with your core values and your vision and extrapolate on what that is, so that you can really share that with people and get them excited about where you're going and why you're going there. So I love that. Sophie, anything you would add to this one?
I would actually say quite the same. I mean, a lot of people join us as well when, it was first casual studio in hyper casual company. It was not super appealing for casual profiles to join hyper casual company. However, having a discussion when they hear about the culture of the environment, because they have had experiences where they know how it could look like when they don't have the right environment and there's some trauma, I think actually it's very, very strong reason to join. And you attract the right people as well who care about that. So I would just double down on what Mike just said.
Cool. Peter, I've got a couple fun ones for you, but we'll start with this one. what kind of leader would your team describe you as? And what does good leadership mean to you, your managers, and your teams?
Okay, I'll start with, I'm not supposed to know this, but I heard from my co-founder that one of my guys told my co-founder that, hey, Peter knows everything, so it's not like anybody can fool him. And I'm like, okay, that is weird. So what I've been doing is that since the beginning of my career, I've had my hand in every cookie jar. Like I do art, I do development, I do game design, everything. And the reason I did that was, as a producer and as a product manager, I need to be able to understand what my team is going through. But it kind of came across in a different manner to some people. The thing is, when something is not, let's say I'm getting art and the quality is not good enough, I might just jump in and polish it a bit. But I can't do art on my own, but I can help it improve quality. So I'm very hands-on. And the thing is, when I do like this, there's a very fine line between being hands-on and helping people. And once you cross the line, you're literally threatening people and being insulting to them, because they submit something and you just jump in and hey, this is what I would do. And that kind of can be really jarring. But if you can do that properly and convince your team that, I'm not here to contradict you or make you look bad, I'm here to help you, improve. And I make it very clear that, when I take their work and put some polish on it, I'm just building upon their huge work. They have done 95%, and I'm looking at how can we hit the rest of the 5%. I'm maybe putting in the 0.5%, and I want them to take that up and amplify it and get it to 99. That is what we want to go for. And there is this format in Indian classical music that we call jugalbandi, which is when an artist, a singer, or a violinist plays a bit, plays a motif, a musical motif, and another musician takes it up, modifies it, remixes it, and creates something new with it, and throws it back at the original guy. And he takes that again, builds upon that motif. And the music, it's improvisation. It's live on stage, and it just builds up. And at the end, if you ask who made that product, right, you cannot point at one of these musicians and say he made it or that the other guy made it. And I want the entire team to work in that manner. So at some point, right, it is not my art and his code. It is our game, right? And that is what I'm trying to pull off. And it's a very thin red line that I walk on, right? If I don't do this right, I can be, threatening to others. Like the guy who said that, hey, Peter knows everything. He's got his hand in everything, so you cannot fool him. I'm not trying to prevent them from fooling me. I trust them. Right, I'm trying to amplify their quality, and so this is I want to do this properly and without threatening people or alienating them, and for that I have to be their best friend first. So this is a very risky, very hands-on, very difficult way of managing a team. I do not want to be a a micromanager. But I still want to be with everybody, doing everything and helping everybody. So this is what I'm trying to be. Sometimes I do make mistakes, but I'm getting better at it.
Yeah. Mike, how do you prioritize projects for your teams? And how do you prioritize your own tasks within a given time period?
Wow, good question. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Is an understatement. We prioritize tasks for our teams on Jira. So we kind of do as most game studios do, we work in Agile, and we kind of work in sprints, and we kind of have a roadmap and we work on that. And we have some fantastic leads who are kind of driving that process when I can't do it. And the way I prioritize my tasks is usually frantically on a notepad and obsessively every morning, just write what are the tasks today? And it's a lot of bouncing it off my co-founder Gina as well. We're very much a team in this. We're always checking in, communicating, aligning. I think alignment is kind of the key there. I guess that's it. So product tasks. Actually, this is going to be kind of and inside track into my mind, but I'm kind of a lot of my tasks are kind of responding to emails, right? So I'll read an email and then I'll mark it as unread. And then I kind of know that that's a priority task that needs an action. And like a lot of my like day is kind of done in that way. It's like, right. And then if there's 3 or 4 like really important ones that just have to be done because there's like some kind of someone's being blocked or like that there's like a big deadline that's going to be missed because of it, then I'll like generally write them in a notepad and just put loads of exclamation marks and stars and underline it. And that will hopefully like nudge me. And if it's really, really important, then I'll stick it into my Google Calendar, mark it as read and just be like, do this, Mike, now.
Love it. I leave my emails unread because those unread, they just drive me bonkers until I do them, but then I'll go do that task. Love it. Sophie, fun one for you. And then we'll have kind of one more question that I'll go through with all of you guys because I think it's so key. But Sophie, what is a big mistake that you made that you now know you should have approached differently?
Yeah, it happened actually end of last year. When we were with our game Plantopia, it was in soft launch. We had also, change of management, a bit more, I would say, closer follow up on the performance of the game, where things going. So it was a lot of pressure end of last year, a bit of hard deadline as well. Like, okay, you have to make it in a month, or maybe we don't continue the game. So it came a bit as a surprise. And I took a lot on me. So I was really stressed without actually acknowledging or even understanding that I was stressed. And I was trying to control, or thought that I had the control, like, okay, let's do everything to save the game. I believe in it. We just are lacking of time and trying to be everywhere. But then the thing I realized that I was spreading this stress to the team, although I thought that, so I was also not sharing openly as well the situation because I didn't want everybody to also know what was the hard deadline that was also on them. But it was on me because I was just stressed. So any of my discussions, the way I talk, the way I approached meetings, the way I present things, it was everywhere. And the big learning and big mistake for me was that I cannot hide, and I can actually, people are adults and they can handle much more than sometimes what we tell ourselves, especially the ones that I name as colleagues. And then at some point I started like, look, I'm not doing well. I feel overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. And I started to share. And actually there were people really solid to be here listening. We will find solution. We do what we want, and started to share. I think that was my main big learning, to, again, lean on others. So not the whole team, but the ones who were the closest and had responsibility, so we could find the best solution. And that I haven't done this before. And for a long time, I was like, I'm just going to hold it and I will be the sponge. And actually, the big learning is that I don't have to do this, because that's part of the trust as well you do with the group. You can share as well the hard times and talk about the hard things, and you do your best. And if you don't manage, at least you did your best as a group. So it's as well switching the mindset about the outcome. We don't control everything, but we control what we have control on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really appreciate that honesty. Okay, so final question here, because I know we're a little over time, but I think this is so important. And again, we're going to talk about culture here a little bit, but go listen to the Rise and Play masterclasses. It's astounding. I love it. But final question for each of you. How would your team describe your company culture? And what are you doing to facilitate stimulating and developing that culture in your teams? So Mike, do you want to take this one first?
Yeah. I think the one word that I would maybe use would be trust. I think that's like really, really important to us. Like, if I actually like read our values out, like, like there's like, positive impact, there's like sustainability, like those are like two of the kind of like, big ones that we have on there, but also, yeah, like creating an environment of trust where, kind of similar to what Peter was saying earlier. I like really liked how he was talking about like almost I'm like paraphrasing him here, but like kind of having no ego and the like best idea wins, and like not micromanaging people. Those kind of themes I like think are quite important to us. So yeah, like trust.
Love it. Peter. Peter, you still with us?
Seems to lag. Yeah.
Okay. Sophie, would you like to go next? How would your team describe your company culture, and what are you doing to facilitate stimulating and developing culture in your teams?
Yeah, so from the beginning, of course, I spent some time as well on the values, and I won't go through them for this question, but at least the main ones I see that are really unique to our team is this passion for learning, like growth mindset. It's really part of us. Like everything is an experiment. We love to learn. We love challenges. We embrace it. We debate really hard sometimes on finding the best solution, and it's not for everyone. So that's one of the things that define really our team. We are very passionate and want to learn and grow. And the second thing is like we are also a very diverse team, culturally, in background, in personality. And the second, I would say, core value we have and we live is the intellectual humility, in the sense that we value a lot different opinions or differences. The fact that we may come from a different place, it's our strength, and not be threatened by it, but really then, be drawn to it. And that's also one of, I would say, our unique traits as a team. And how we cultivate it, so words are words, and you can put it, of course, on a document, and then people like remember and forget. But it's in all the actions. So for me, it starts with me. It starts also with the people I hire. So I use this filter with the people who value that already, so they don't have to adopt a culture. They are already like that. So then it has a spread effect, because everyone is like this and they interact with each other. And I would say culture is kept as well by eliminating behaviors that don't support the thing that are your values, right? So sometimes people are just, it's stress, or things get off the rail, and it's important not just for me, but key people in the team. I expect from leads, producer, to call out as well when there are behaviors that are not acceptable. And it's not to say the person is bad, but sometimes it can go a bit far. And then this is where we remind what is our culture, to maybe, not interrupt people, or, to let everybody talk as well in a meeting, to share the point of view, things like that.
Fantastic. Peter, would you like to go next? How would your team describe your company culture?
Right. So here's the thing. When we started the company, the first thing I did was, set up my Notion and started this page that said, the culture page, right? And the first hire actually came in 4 weeks after that. And the company's brand was not finalized until another 8 weeks from then. So this is the first thing we did. And what I ended up doing is that me and the co-founder working together, Joshi, working together, we ended up making a big document, which was like impressive. But then it's like, you need to reduce this. This is not like, culture is not a list of rules, and it's definitely not, pages and pages of philosophy. Culture is only real when it manifests in our actions. So we kind of distilled it down to some sort of a 10 commandments thing. And we found that it's still unwieldy. We thought we'll print it out, put it on the walls. And, you don't put those posters on the walls. It has to get embedded in here. The thing is, whenever we make decisions, whenever we work with, deal with somebody else, or when we have crisis situations, when we are arguing with somebody, that's when these things come into play. And you can't have a 10-point list of how you should act, in your mind at all times. It simply doesn't work. And then I stumbled onto this philosophy, this African philosophy of Ubuntu, right? And we realized that this is perfect. This is literally what we were trying to do. If you wanted to distill the entire thing into one single word, then this is that word, Ubuntu. And what it means is that, every person in human society, right? Not just my team, in human society, is who he is because of everybody around him, right? There is no human that exists alone, and a human existing, working, creating, and succeeding alone is impossible. It's contradictory. It's not who we are. We cannot have a fence with just a single fence post, right? It doesn't make a fence. It's useless. It might look good. Technically, that is possibly a fence of 2 centimeters width, but it's not doing anything. That is what a human is if he doesn't, play together with others. right? It's a football team of just a goalie, right? The best you can do is not get screwed so bad, you're not going to win though, you can defend. So it makes a lot of sense for me to, tell my team, and I've been slowly, disseminating this and trying to bring this up and trying to make people understand what it means. And the thing is, this has always been there in the way me and my co-founder has behaved with others. And we believe that no matter, even if you distill it down to one word and teach people this, the best way to actually instill culture in an organization is to behave in a way that is compatible with that, philosophy, to that culture. And if I behave in that manner, everybody who looks up to me will behave in that manner. So I need to do the right thing, and I need to make sure that people look up to me and copy me. So basically, that's how it is. And culture is going to be something that continuously evolves. So, if I ask my team what the company's culture is right now, probably everybody will have a different answer. Okay, and I believe that at no point will everybody perceive the company in the exact same way. And these answers will keep changing, and that's okay, right? Everybody sees the same thing in a completely different angle. And that is fine, as long as they're all being nice to each other, playing together well, and building a game together. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
That's great.
That was awesome.
I love that. Just to add a little color, because I think this is so important. And it's something that I learned with the first company that I started, where I was kind of always on the mindset of, you just got to go fast and you got to get things done. And so the idea of spending time to figure out a vision or a culture, things like that, just seemed, why am I going to waste my time doing that? Similarly, that first company, I also did things well, why am I going to spend all this extra time when writing code to try to make it reusable or readable, dry? I just got to go fast, right? Why am I going to take time to do automated testing in my code? All of these things came back to hunt me later, right? By not making that code reusable, maintaining it and long-term update, it was just awful. It had to be basically a complete rewrite. It took way more time than it would have had I done the right thing along the way. Not having automated testing, that works fine for a little while until things start breaking and you don't know where or why, and you've got to go back through and add all. It's just such a pain. And another thing, I was playing around with a compound interest calculator, and I think more than anything, vision, you should think about it as the interest rate that you're going to get on how your company is going to grow. I was playing around, and the difference between a 6% interest rate to a 7%, it came out to be $20-30 million of added value with that 1% over the lifetime of the company. And I think if you take the time to dictate that vision, which gives you this lens to filter everyone on the same goal, the same direction. There's always going to be hundreds of things that your team could do at any point in time, but there's only a few things that you're going to do that's actually going to help you move forward with that, vision and actually achieve those things. And so by having that, it allows you to move forward in a laser focused way to actually achieve that outcome that you're trying to do. And I think if you have that and you use core values and you're using those to find the right people, focus them on the right thing, your interest rate is not going to be the 2%, 3% that you get by not doing that. It's going to be more like 30% or 50%. And it's just going to build and build and build upon itself for your company. So I always say, start there, just like Mike did day one, figure out your core values and use that to kind of drive everything. So guys, this has been so great. Thank you so much for joining me today. If folks do have any, questions afterwards, are there, good ways to get in contact with each of you?
Yeah, you can just, DM me on LinkedIn. I'm there.
Sounds good.
Yeah, same. As long as you're not trying to sell me anything.
Yeah, me too. Same. On LinkedIn.
Yeah. Mike, I'm going to try to sell you $2 or $1 for $2 in a little bit. I'll shoot you a DM. Cool. All right. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.